This is a Ben Frank Connection presentation.
What's going on, everybody? We are back for another episode of the ABJ Podcast, episode 112. Very, very excited for this one. This one's going to be in conjunction with Labor of Love. They run a promotion out of Philadelphia. They do great work. They're having a huge show coming up very soon, as well as WrestleMania weekend. Have a lot of fun things going on. And also in conjunction with the Worldwide Dojo. We've talked about this school numerous times, have numerous students on, and now we're going to have the man behind the plan there, Cheeseburger, on the podcast. Make sure you check out all links below for all things for myself, whether it be social media, the way to support with merchandise and stuff like that, or all the links below for my guest. So make sure you hit those up, support, go leave a comment on one of the posts, like, hey, heard about you from the podcast or listen to you on the podcast. Show that love, show that support. This is the last pre-recorded episode for the month of February. I crammed everything at you guys for the month of February that was all pre-recorded that I was going to stretch out till June. I feel like I'm ready. I'm ready to dive back in. I think I'm in a good spot mentally and emotionally, and not so much with the job and stuff yet, but we're getting there. But starting in March, we're going to be bringing back live interviews. We're going to be doing the Not Cool in High School movie reviews, music reviews. We have a lot of people who are going to be coming back that were guests or other guests that are going to come back and talk about some of their favorite things in pop culture and horror and all of those really fun things. So it's not just going to be always interviews. There's going to be a mix. So it might be one of your favorite wrestlers coming on talking about a movie they like, or a comic book, or an album. So we have so much stuff coming to the ABJ podcast. It's not just going to be interview based. It's going to be ways to sit down and learn about people, but also learn about things that they're interested in besides the world of professional wrestling. So without further ado, let me bring in my guest for episode 112, the world famous Cheeseburger. What's going on, bud?
Hey, what's up? Thanks for having me.
I'm super excited about this one. Actually, there was one other question I forgot to ask you behind the scenes. I'll bring it up. If you don't like it, we'll cut it. But but it's coming. It's going to be dropping a little bit. It's more of a funny thing, only because we can kick off with it, and if it doesn't work, we'll cut it. But Cheeseburger, there's everybody in the world loves you. You are the most loved human being of all time. I've never heard a negative thing about you. One of the coolest things I've recently heard is Journey was at a show, and they're backstage, and we're sitting at the monitor, and because of the podcast and the way I get to meet and connect with people, I get to put people over at shows like, hey, like kind of give them a rundown. This is what they do. This is what they excel at. This is their character. And they're like, oh, that's really good, because they didn't know who she was, her first debut show there. Yeah. And I was like, oh, she's training at the dojo. She's like a Cheeseburger student. And they're like, oh, that's awesome. That makes so much sense. I love her more now. And that was the Mech of Brian Johnson. Well, pull back the curtain a little bit. Yeah, he put you over. But there's one guy out there who just can't stand you, and I don't understand why. Nasty Leroy.
Oh, yeah. That our long. I think our feud has been going on for about 3-4 years now.
How did that start? What made Nasty not like you?
It all started. I think it was 2021. We met through like Janela Zone, and like Janela was just going live like every day during the COVID like years, because like we just were all like sitting at home, and like there's like this weird like Janela Zone community that kind of formed, where like a bunch of us became like friends and just kind of got to know each other, and that like created like other people to go live and like do spin-off shows and stuff like that. But this all started with Janela Zone, and like Leroy was a freaking guest on Janela Zone, and Leroy started going live, so I would go live with Leroy and just like chat with them. And I think this all, from what I remember, this all started with Leroy asking me to be his tag partner and to come on his like podcast, and I said no, and that was like, that was it. We did one tag with him or do his podcast, and that was just like the start of it, and like we just everything progressed from there. Where
I seen
like,
recently you guys took a photo together. It was really funny.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, and that ended up we ended up getting booked in a match. I had a hardcore match at GCW's Janela's spring break, or not spring break, the GCW backyard show. And they were ended up beating me in that match, and I thought the feud was over, but we keep encountering each other. We had some encounters at Wrestle Pro, just different things, and I actually saw him a couple of weeks ago when I was in Atlanta. So I surprised him at his local Hooters. Yeah.
Well, Nasty's always he's very supportive of me, whether it's on TikTok or Twitter. He's always putting me over, liking my stuff. So he's gonna be very excited to see this interview. And what a great way to start is to throw Nasty a little plug. But I feel like that tag team that has to happen eventually. Nasty Burger, you know what I mean? It's gotta that's gotta happen at some point.
He refused to tag with me.
So now he's giving you the no.
Yeah. Now I haven't asked him to tag with me, but he's just like, I'm not gonna be your tag partner.
I love that. Sorry, what a great way to start off the podcast. I threw a curveball at you, but
no, that's fine.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, you're a professional wrestler. Because going into the new year too, we're going to be mixing it up. I'm going to have musicians and a bunch of stuff. I try to do these interviews to. Even if you're not into the scene of the people I'm talking about, I want people to understand who the person is as I'm interviewing and stuff like that. So a professional wrestler, you've been doing this a long time. You're now from professional wrestler to you're owning your own school. You're a trainer. You're a coach. So, I mean, you've been doing this for a long time, all over this country, all over the world, Japan to everywhere. And I know this is the corny podcast question, but when did you fall in love with this wrestling, like the world of professional wrestling?
It started like when I would just go to my dad's house and watch wrestling with him. My first memory of wrestling was watching SmackDown when it first started. So around that 2000, 2001 period was when I really started to get into it. And just from there, I fell in love with it as a kid. Just the pageantry of it, the like physicality, like the characters, the promos, everything. And that was such a good era to get into wrestling. And that kind of shaped one of my major interests growing up as a kid. And when I got into high school, that was kind of that period where wrestling stopped being as cool. Like my friends didn't really watch it. I stopped watching it for a couple of years. So I missed that whole ECW revival era. Like I missed like Jeff Hardy winning the belt, like all that stuff from like that 05, 06 to about 09-ish era, which is also really good. And I got back into it around 2010 and, it rekindled my love for it. I just caught Raw on TV one day. And from there, I wanted to learn everything I could about wrestling. That was when I started getting the Japanese wrestling. I discovered it on YouTube. And I got into the independents, Ring of Honor, everything. And from there, that progressed to my love of wrestling to deciding I wanted to be in wrestling in some aspect.
Yeah. Now, when in school, when you weren't doing the wrestling bit, were you into theater? Were you into sports? Was it so when you then made your transition to pro wrestling, was it an easy transition? Was it insanely difficult? Like every other person had that thing. Like so I had Huckabee on. Huckabee, he's like, I knew I wanted to be this. This is what I wanted to do. Eighth and Promise, Junie Underwood. That they knew that's like. Their entire high school career was them building up to become a professional wrestler. Like that was their goal. Was it like you said, you took that break off and then found it again? When did that gear shift that you wanted to do this, and what did you do to prepare for it?
So I was like the exact opposite, where I didn't do anything to prepare to be a wrestler because I had wanted to be a wrestler, but I didn't know it yet, if that makes sense. As a kid, when I watched wrestling, I was really into it. Like me and my friends, we would wrestle like all the time. Like we would, have pillows as chairs and like do moves on each other. When I was in high school, I actually was really, I played sports in elementary school and middle school. When I got into high school, that was when I got big into online gaming, and I just became a gamer during that time. I was very big into World of Warcraft. I was a heavy like hardcore raider World of Warcraft for like 3 or 4 years, I would say. Like a lot of my it messed up my high school grades big time because I would raid. I was like on my server, I was in like the top guild, and we would raid about 4 days a week until like 2 a.m. trying to do like the biggest bosses and the biggest dungeons and everything. And
who was your character?
I had 3. My first one was a paladin. I had a dwarf paladin, and I originally was a healer. And then when they kind of like had the big patch and made paladins like good tanks and everything, then I switched to tanking. And then my next character was I had a mix of a balanced druid and that also a restoration druid, and it was a healer as well as a damage dealer. And then when Death Knights came out, I switched to being a Death Knight, and that was awesome. Like Death Knights were super cool.
I got into it, and it was when the expansion came out with the pandas.
Oh yeah. I had stopped playing right before that one came out, I think.
Yeah.
Or the one before that one.
I had all these friends who were like, yo, World of Warcraft's going to be amazing. We're going to all play together. I bought it. I downloaded it, put it on my computer. I got like a gaming laptop, got my Panda, and they all quit. And I played from 1 to 80 or 1 to 100 completely alone. It was the most, it was a massive multiplayer game online, and it was the loneliest experience I ever had. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the world and how you were able to walk around and do things, and like that game. The game is so in depth and so much fun, but it will grab you.
Yeah. One of the coolest like times of my life. I met a lot of like really cool friends just through raiding and PvP and things like that. And I just really loved the game, and I really was passionate about it. But after about that 4 or 5 year mark, it started just getting kind of old and kind of stale, and I really kind of slowed down on it. And then at that point was when I kind of started falling back into love with wrestling. And that just happened I remember I caught like the last Raw. I think it was like 2009, where it was like Sheamus like put Cena through like a table or something to set up their TLC match. And I remember like watching the Raw the next week, and like, let me give this check this out. I watched wrestling in a while, and just like I watched the whole show, and I was like, oh wow, this is hooked. And I watched like Impact the next day, or that same day too, and it was just everything was just coming at me, and I was like, oh, I gotta get back. I love wrestling, get back into it. So when I started back training, I had like done nothing to prepare for it. Where I started training, I had done nothing to prepare for it because I was just like didn't know what I was getting myself into at all. But I remember thinking like I love wrestling, and this is something I'm really passionate about. And I saw an ad for the Ring of Honor school, and it was only about 15 minutes from my house. And I went for a meeting, checked out the school, and said, this is something I want to do. It's something I want to try.
So it's the same building that you're in now, but that's where you went to essentially train. Who was running it at that time?
At that time, the head trainers were Delirious and Daisy Hayes, and Grizzly Redwood was one of the assistant trainers.
That's crazy. So I didn't realize what I was walking into when we did a taping for Camp Leapfrog in the dojo. So we came in, and I walked in, and BP, who I do everything with, Brian, you've met him at Spidertainment. He's the wrestling encyclopedia. I love that man with everything I got. He's my best bud. But we walked in, and he kind of gave me the elbow. He's like, do you know where we are right now? And I was like, we're Cheeseburger school. He goes, no, this was the ROH dojo. Like that was Punk's office. Brian, like he's telling me everything, and he took a picture and sent it to Matt Turner, who trained at that school when he was with Punk. And the first thing he asked like in the text message back was, is the squat rack still broken? And I turned, and there's a do not use sign on it, and I was like, it's broken. He goes, Claudio broke that during a promo back in the day. I guess they loaded everything up, and he put it on the Smith machine and shattered it, and it's still there. And I was like, that's awesome.
The story I had always heard was Claudio had put every single weight on like the Smith machine to do like squats, and somehow it just got off track. But actually, it does work now. Like you can use it. I use it when I work out. One of my students like managed to like fix it and like get it back on track. So it's not like perfect, but it's usable. But every time I'm at AW, I keep meaning to ask Claudio that story, and I always forget. So I got to ask Claudio.
Who
Claudio
fixed it?
The new Smith machine.
Who fixed it?
One of my students, his name's Sean. He like ended up like pitting it back, like getting it back on the tracks.
That's sick. Well, good for him, because that's been damaged for a very, very long time. That's
We
like a relic.
I leave the sticky note up there now just for like just kind of want to see it. I think that sticky note's been there before I even started training. So it's been going. That sticky note's been holding strong for about 14 years, and I'm like, nobody touch it. Like, just leave it. I just want to see how long it lasts.
Yeah, there's so many cool little Easter eggs and spots in that building that's like, oh, this person contributed this, and it's all still there, and I love that. We'll definitely dive more into the building in that in a second. Mm-hmm. But so you get in there and you're training under the names you just trained. What was it like training under them and learning under them, and what did you gain from them? Like, because Delirious is one of my favorites too. Like he's an animal. Like he's just fun to watch. He's super entertaining, and everybody else there is super talented too. But what was it like going through that training? Was it as hard as they made it out to be? Was there ever a moment where you're like, yo, this ain't for me, this is too hard?
Yeah, the first day I was like, this is not for me. This is too hard. So I originally signed up to be a manager because I thought I was too small to be a wrestler. So it's like a fun fact a lot of people don't know about me. I wanted to be a manager. I wanted to be in wrestling in some capacity, but I didn't think I had what it took to be a wrestler. But what I didn't know was that the managers had to go through all the same training that the wrestlers did because, everyone needs to know everything in wrestling. So it's like, we start day one, and before you can get in the ring, like you don't get into the ring for the first few sessions. You're just on the outside. We'll do like a group yoga stretch, some sort of like workout. Like we do circuits of like squats, push-ups, like crunches, things like that. And after we did like Daisy was leading the class because Delirious was in Japan at the time, and she would do like very intensive yoga, like yoga plus like cardio, and it was very intense. And like I said, I had been just playing video games for however long and did not think to prepare for wrestling because I didn't think I would be doing anything like this training to be a manager. And after the yoga, I was like already done, and they're like, all right guys, push-ups and squats and everything. I'm like, oh man. And I remember like at one point just like feeling like I was like having a heart attack. I remember laying down on like the couch and just saying like, looking at Daisy saying like, I think there's something wrong with my heart. And she's like, yeah, maybe just like you might just need to go outside and get some air. So I'm like just sitting outside, like getting some air. And I come back in, I finished the session, and I managed to get through everything. But I went home, or got in the car. My mom picked me up. I was still 17 at the time when I started training. My mom picked me up, and I remember telling her, like, man, I don't want to come back the next day. And she's like, just, we already paid the deposit, so like, just give it one more day. And I was like, all right. So I gave it another day, and then another day, and then another day, and then it just kind of, I always tell my students, like, things will start off hard, then they'll get progressively easier. Then you'll do something new, and that gets hard, and then it'll get easier. And it's just a constant cycle of things start hard and then get easier, but then you'll do something else that gets hard and then easier, and just kind of going through that cycle.
Was there any moment during your what was the thing that made you keep coming back? I don't say made you, but like what was that one thing you're like, I have to do? Was it your mom pushing you? Was it somebody in the school that was like, hey man, like just stick it out, you got this? Like, was it the motivation? Because some people go to wrestling schools and it's like their job in the beginning is to weed you out. And if you think for a second of doubt, that some trainers are like, there it is, that's what we're looking for, we're trying to weed out the weak and keep the strong. Was it the coaching style of them being like, no, you got this, like it's gonna get easier, it's gonna get hard, like how you just said, like how you are as a trainer? What kept you coming back to the door in those early stages?
Definitely my mom for sure. That helped a lot, her pushing me to go back, but also just like you said, the environment, the positive environment of it. Delirious and Daisy and Grizzly are very motivating, like coaches. They're very like helpful and very like create a really good atmosphere. And if it wasn't for the environment there, I probably wouldn't have came back. But because of especially like Delirious, like being long-term training with him. The way he's able to teach and the environment he's able to cultivate and create, like, helped a ton. And I feel like if I had started somewhere else, maybe I would have quit. But they were very good at pushing me to keep coming forward.
Yeah, growing up playing sports and soccer and football and basketball, like I get the tough coach aspect where you're like, if this is not what you want, get the hell out. Don't waste my time. And I always think to myself, like, man, like you don't know who you're pushing out that door by that style. You know what I mean? And even when I started coaching, when I coached soccer later on, like it was just an approach I didn't want to be. Like me personally, I would see the 5 or 6 people who were really, really good. And I was like, oh, they got this. And I'd give them all the attention I want, but I'd also really focus on the 10 who weren't getting it. Cause I'm like, there might be a gem in there that in 10, like 5-6 years, that gem is a reason why you win a game later on down the season. Cause they're good at that one thing or whatever it may be. And I love the fact that like the environment that you learned out of through Delirious and Daisy and them, where it was like, this is really, really like inspiring, good. And then you carried that on to kind of your style then later on as well.
Yeah, absolutely. They were like tough coaches, but fair coaches, if that makes sense. Like it wasn't just like a toughness in the sense of they want to like get you out of there and just kind of take your money, get you out of there. But it was they knew like when to be tough, but also when to like be motivating. Yeah.
So how long into your training and going through the school before you're gonna put together your first match or get to that level?
Like on like an actual show.
Mm-hmm.
I It took me a while because it took me to just in terms of just getting like things down and everything. It took me a while. It took me about a year and like a couple of months to debut. I started training in October 2010. I didn't debut until May 2012. So yeah, about like a year and a half of classes and training and everything. And fun fact, actually, my first booking was through the Briscoes. Jay and Mark booked me on a show they had in Delaware. Their first like show they ran, Pro Wrestling Revival. And yep.
I mean, them boys up there.
Yeah, they booked me for a show, and I remember like that day at training, I came in the class, and I was having like a really bad day for some reason. And Delirious came up to me and he's like, "Hey, I got some good news. You're gonna have your first match. Like the Briscoes booked you because they knew me from like Ring of Honor, just helping out backstage and everything. They're like, the Briscoes are gonna book you for your first match." And I was just kind of like, "Oh yeah, like that's great and everything." And then Grizzly Red was like, "You're not like excited? Like wait, like what's going on? Like, you're
on a Briscoe show?
Like no, like I'm excited. It's just like it's like." It's the whole thing. But yeah, they booked me for my first show. That was May 2012, and it was just like a 3-minute like squash match with this like big guy, and then he ended up wrestling like another match after that to like set like as like a precursor to that match and everything. But yeah, it went well. I was still wrestling under a mask at the time. My first gimmick, Leech Landa, which I wanted to be a mask wrestler. So I did that for a couple of like a year and a half before I fully went to Cheeseburger. And yeah, it was a fun time.
So you were doing the school and you were working with Delirious and stuff like that, and it's the ROH school. So you're in the ROH, but then you're also doing the backstage stuff with ROH. What is the environment like at ROH at that time? The roster obviously is what it is, and the people who are there. One of the people that we both are very fond over, very very good guy. Give him his plug now. Kerry, love me some Kerry.
Yeah,
good.
Yeah, okay.
One of my favorite moments with you and Kerry is Kerry just shows up at shows sometimes. You don't even know he's coming, and he just pops in. He usually walks in, like, get a hand on the shoulder. He goes, "What's up, my boy?" And you get the hug. But you're wrestling at Avery Good's farewell show at the brewery, and you're doing your thing. And Kerry is like still a fan. He loves all of his kids. He loves everyone, and he's front row, and he's filming on his little phone.
Yeah.
Jeez, give me a pose. Give me a pose. It was just cool to see like Kerry, who owned like most of what we see on TV now, has come through Kerry for like I would say a good 80% of wrestling right now has come through that ROH system and is on TV. And then here he is, like the guy who's lived it, done it. There he is with his little phone, and he's recording you in a match at a brewery. Like, that's so dope. I love him.
Yeah, he's the man.
Who are some people you really got to bond with during those early stages? Obviously, beside your coaches that you're like that probably put you in places that you wouldn't have had if you weren't in that system.
Yeah, a lot of the people in the ring crew at the time, like I really bonded with and have had connections with for like years. Like, Rhett Titus, that's when I first met Rhett. It actually plays into how I got the name Cheeseburger, which I can go into that story in a second.
Yes,
like, Rhett is a part of the reason responsible for that. So like, yeah, Rhett was on the ring crew at the time, so I bonded with Rhett a lot. Ernie Osiris, who runs Fight Pro now, he was like one. Like a lot of these guys were older students that like I became connected with. The Bravado brothers, one of them, which is in NXT now, is Andre Chase, which was Harlem the Lance and Harlem. Yeah, he was Harlem Bravado. I get Lance Bravado was his brother, who's a politician.
Every time I see Andre Chase, I'm like, it's Dylan. It looks like Dylan.
Oh, yeah. But the Bravado brothers were there when I first started, so like it's so cool to see him doing all this awesome stuff at NXT. Like it makes me super happy that like he had found that success. Mike Seidel, he was always around when he would come from St. Louis. He would stay in the summers, things like that. My friend Bird, who was wrestling at the time, but now he's like one of the head of the backstage like ring crew production people in AEW now, so he found success with that. Like outside of wrestling. Oh God, I feel like I'm missing so many people. Shane Hagedorn, who also works at AEW now as well in the merch department. So many people, and then
he sees my name a lot on the invoices.
Oh yeah, I connected with the Briscoes a lot early on. Like I was super intimidated to meet the Briscoes, and they were the nicest. Like they're like the scariest looking guys, but like the nicest human beings like ever. Hero and Claudio were both there at the time, and I always got along with them. And like Generico and like Kevin, like they were always great. So yeah, I was just like this 17, 18-year-old kid just coming into the locker room, and I always tell people it's weird to think about, but I was in ROH until the sale happened, which was about 12 years. So I literally was raised from a teenager to an almost 30-year-old man in the ROH locker room, essentially.
Yeah, it's cool to think about. Like, you came in at 17, your first week wanted a way out and forced your way through, got through it, got done. And it really comes down to really picking, like, when you get into a wrestling school, it just happened to fall in your backyard. Like, you didn't have to travel, you didn't have to, like, everything fell into place for you to get to the point where, like, hey, I'm going to go to the school. It's in my backyard. It's ROH. ROH leads to what we have now in the business. Like, you meet all these good connections. Like, I don't know. It's kind of awesome how it all kind of fell into your lap there. But you're talking about Rhett Titus and helped you with discovering your name and your new character of Cheeseburger. How did you become Cheeseburger?
So it's like the question I get asked like all the time. So basically what happened was, this was a couple of weeks into my training, and we were going on a road trip to, I think, Ohio and Chicago. And this is going to be my first road trip with the ring crew and like all the people from the school. And we were out back when we had the storage unit out back at the school, like loading up the ring and everything. And I remember Rhett Titus came, and I remember he came up, and I remember thinking like, oh, that's Rhett Titus. Like, I've seen him on like Ring of Honor and TV, and I was like, oh damn. So I was like, I gotta go, say hi to him. So I went up to him and like stuck my hand out and said, hey, nice to meet you. And he kind of looked at me up and down, and he's like, man, you need to eat a cheeseburger. And like that was the first thing he said to me. And like everybody, like all the students, everything, everyone like pops like huge. They're like, oh, because at the time too, a lot of the new students would get like nicknames. And like Grizzly was like, that's a cheeseburger. That's gonna be his nickname. Because I was like 17, like 115 pounds at the time, like super skinny. And they were like, that cheeseburger, that's gonna be your name. And the gimmick was, for my first road trip, every time we stopped at a rest stop, like I would have to eat like a cheeseburger, and that would be like the way I would like gain weight for wrestling.
I love that. So here's a question for you. I'm going to give a little plug to my boys over at the Opinion City Podcast. Their gimmick during their podcast is a top 5 list. So I'm going to throw something at you real quick. Your top 5 cheeseburgers. If you had to pick, I mean, you've been all over. You've been to Japan. You've been East Coast, West Coast.
Top 5. That's tough. I'll name the first 4 in no particular order, but like, there's a place there's like a chain in Pittsburgh called Burgatory. They're fantastic. Okay. Actually, a few times they've given me a few. Like we would like run Pittsburgh like 3 times a year for Ring of Honor, and Burgatory is right next door. And I remember tweeting them one time, saying like, a fan tweeted me saying, hey, did you get a Burgatory burger this time? And I said, no, I didn't have time because we were doing like ring crew and setting up the ring. I just didn't have time. So Burgatory sent me a DM, and they were like, hey, what do you want? And I was like, oh, this, and this. And they had someone bring it over to me to the show.
That's sick.
So Burgatory.
You gotta cash in on that name, baby.
Yeah. Burgatory's up there. There's a place nearby the Dojo. There's like bar that I really like called Dog and Bull. They're just like a local bar, and they have like one of the best burgers I've ever had. And it's like really good cheddar ale sauce. That's a tough one.
What about the fast food chains? Like if you had a Burger King, McDonald's, Wendy's, Sonic.
I mean, I love McDonald's. Like McDonald's is my favorite fast food place, which may surprise people. But my order for McDonald's has always been the same: quarter pounder with cheese, no mustard, medium fry. I love me a good quarter pounder. That's just like if I had nothing else, I know like no matter where I go, a quarter pounder with cheese will be the same everywhere I go. And
except Royale with cheese if you're overseas.
I like Shake Shack. Shake Shack is really good. That might be my favorite fast food burger actually. Shake Shack.
All right.
I'm not Whataburger's okay. It's all right. In-N-Out is I liked it the first few times, but as I had In-N-Out burger more and kind of not feeling it. Actually, Culver. I had Culver's for the first time recently. When I was down in Minnesota, and Culver's is really, really good. I don't know, like they're not really like around like out east at all, but Culver's is absolutely fantastic. But the best burger I have ever had, I got booked at a place in called Totally Arctic Wrestling in Nunavut, Canada, which is in the Northwest Territories. It's the furthest north wrestling promotion in the entire world, like even above like Russia, like wherever it may be. It's like up in the like above the Arctic Circle. It's like as far north as you can. It's literally touching the Arctic Ocean. And my friend There's 3 wrestlers up there. My friend Dez, who was the one that booked me, a guy named Nolar Bear, and a guy named Blue Wilder, and it's just them 3, and they basically just like run the show and wrestle with each other. And I was like the first name they brought up there, just throughout my connection with Dez. And we did 2 shows. One was in their hometown, Inuvik, which is a town, like I said, in Arctic Circle with about 2,000 people. And we did a show with 4 wrestlers, and one other guy named Devin, who was the referee, ring announcer, gear collector, and bell ringer.
I love that.
So basically what happened was we did a tag match with the 4 of us. All of us would go to the back. I think Blue and Nola Bear came back out. They did a street fight. They came back out. And then Dez and me went out for the main event and did a title match.
At least I didn't book a 13-match card still somehow.
We did 3. And then the second day we did, I'm getting to the burger part, but the second show was in a town called Tuktoyaktuk, which is like Inuit reservation, which has like 900 people that sits like on the Arctic Ocean. And there's a dirt highway that goes from Inuvik to Tuk, and we just a 1 lane or 2 lane like dirt highway that got us up there. And we went to Tuk and we set up a show. Same thing, we did 3 matches. But before we went to the show, they're like, "You want to get something to eat?" I'm like, "Yeah, I want to try some local food and stuff like that." So there's a small like shack called Grandma's Kitchen, like sitting right next to like this, like, I use the term beach, Lucy, but like a beach by the Arctic Ocean. And just this small shack with this like old lady that just like had all these different foods. And I got a burger. I got just like, a burger with like some lettuce and like grilled onions and some cheese. And I remember taking a bite of it, and I was just like, it was like a euphoric experience of like, what? It was legit the best burger I've ever had. And this
was the bun, was the meat?
It's the meat. Yeah, mainly. I mean, everything was great. The bread was great. Like the meat was great. Like lettuce, the onions, everything. But I mean, definitely it was for sure the meat. Absolutely, was like the biggest thing. But it was just like, I don't know what it was about it. It was just like the taste of it was just like so different than anything I ever had. But it was just a burger though. It wasn't anything like crazy. But
yeah,
it was just like it tasted so good, and I was like, I did not expect that from this like small shack. Again, middle of nowhere, literally middle of nowhere, as far north as you could possibly go. Nobody in this town, and she had this like the best burger I ever had. Also, side note, I did try it. She had a whale blubber for sale, which I tried also, which is a muktuk, which is like a local delicacy there. And I tried that as well, and that was interesting.
So on your travels, is that like a big thing for you? Is like go try the local foods, like the mom and pop places, like stuff like that?
Yeah. I prefer.
I love that too.
Sure.
That's my favorite. Yeah. Like if I'm on a venue and I'm like, if we have like 5 minutes, I'm gonna go find something to eat. I try to find like a local pizza shop, because my thing is I can live and die on cheeseburgers and pizza. You just give me that all day long, I'm good to go. If I want to get fancy, I'll go chicken parm. Chicken parm's my fancy meal. I would much rather
try a local place for sure. That's like always the thing, especially if there's like a place that has like something interesting, like a local cuisine, whatever it may be. Like I always love trying like anything new. But yeah, that was such a cool experience. I tried like whale blubber up there. It was actually pretty good, I'll be honest.
So in your illustrious career and everything you've had going on, some matches or career highlights for you that really stand out, that if you were to look back and you say like, all right, these are some matches that if you're going to look up cheeseburger matches, these are the ones that really stand out for you or really connect or resonate with you.
A couple that come to mind off the top of my head. My first match, well, actually both of them, my 2 matches with Speedball at LVAC. Both of those were 2 of the best matches I feel like I ever had bell to bell. He's absolutely a machine and one of the best in the world. Both of those were super awesome matches, and they really pushed me to become a better professional wrestler. Another one would be my last Ring of Honor match, which was with Delirious. That was like our last TV taping before we went, like, after we learned that we were all getting fired basically and the company was being sold, we had one more TV taping left, one more like no fans TV taping during COVID. And it was a very emotional taping because we all got fired essentially, or we're about to get fired in like a month or 2. So it was super emotional, and we didn't know if the company was going to come back or what form, or if we would have jobs. The future was uncertain. So it was super emotional for everybody. And there was like a lot of tears that night. And my last match, which was a storyline I've been building up, was against Delirious, which, I had said before, was my trainer, and he was my boss for my entire time Ring of Honor as a booker, executive producer, but just in general, just a friend and mentor to me throughout the years, and we became like extremely close. And having that last match being against him in a match where the story was that I finally was able to beat him, that was so emotional. And like after the match, I didn't even know this was going to happen. We like shook hands and he took his mask off and like gave it to me. And I just started like bawling my eyes out in the ring. Like there's a clip of it, like the ROH page. And actually the match is on YouTube too, if anyone wants to watch it. But we hug and it just gets like real emotional. I'm just crying my eyes out because I didn't know.
Hell yeah.
Like one, because I was like Ring of Honor shutting down. This has been my home for the past 12 years and we all got fired. But also just like that match was really good and he gave me his mask and I didn't know it. And it was so emotional. I felt like the emotions came out. That one was great. Another one's on YouTube. My match with Roderick Strong for Ring of Honor, which was like, that was like my first like really good singles match in Ring of Honor. I feel like a really good like long singles match. And Roddy definitely, same thing, like the speedball match pushed me to step my game up and be better.
Dude, I'm so stoked for Roddy versus Orange Cassidy. People have no idea what they're in store for that match. It's gonna be so good.
Roddy's the man. He's always man. He has such a level of like speed and intensity that you have to match his level, or you're just gonna get like run over. So that was good. I liked all my New Japan stuff. I had some really fun New Japan matches. My favorite one would definitely be me and Delirious tagging against Yano and Colt Cabana on one of the Honor Rising shows. That was like just such a fun match. We had so much comedy in that match, and we had Cork and Hall just laughing the entire match, and it was one of the first matches I had in Japan where I just felt like super comfortable and like I'm in my element and like this is going really well and like this is what I want it to be, and it was such a fun match. I recommend all. Oh, my match with Jay Malachi also at Deadlock Pro. Jay Malachi just got signed to NXT recently. But I wrestled him when he was 17, and funny enough, he had a track meet that day at high school, so he was late to the show. He won a track meet and then came to the show to wrestle me. We wrestled at Deadlock Pro, which is a fantastic company in North Carolina, and just right away, it's very rare when you have someone that you have like instant chemistry with, and right away I could tell when we were putting the match together, like all right, this is gonna be really good. And then he was still super young, like I said, 17. Had only been wrestling like a couple of years, but he was just like spot on with his timing and like his pacing and like his strikes, like all his movements, and he had like charisma and everything. I was like, there's no way this guy's not going to be a star. Like he's the man. So I'm really.
What's his name under NXT yet, or is he not been?
He just got signed a couple of weeks ago. He hasn't debuted.
Okay.
But Jay Malachi.
I think they just put in Chase Hughes really good. That what the hell is his name? I'm new to NXT. I took a huge break off, and I've been doing the watch alongs and watching it, and like so every night, like with Raw and SmackDown, and all these things, like go live. I do like a watch along on YouTube. Yes. And I'm really starting to get back into NXT. But the new kid they just put in Chase U, like he's like the one that Thea Hale's all gushing over.
Riley Osborne, I think his name.
Yeah, he's good. I like him a lot.
No, he's great.
He just looks like he's like the Captain America of pro wrestling. Like that kid. Yeah, he has a great look. I think Thea Hales is so goddamn entertaining. She's like Billie Kay, except her work rate in the ring is unbelievable. I think she's very talented.
Very, very good.
The new angle they did though. Ooh, in light of everything going on, and then they do like a calendar, and they brought all these girls in to do a calendar shoot. I'm like, ooh, that could be misconstrued.
I haven't been following at all.
Essentially, they did like a sexy calendar shoot to save the school. So it's like they're using sex to sell. Essentially, it's like the timing is not the best to put this. Yeah. But it's working. It's because it's Chase U and everyone's super entertaining, so it's getting over.
Here and there, I haven't like been following like super heavy. If like one of my like friends that I know is like doing something cool, I'll like check out their matches and things like that.
Yeah. That's kind of hard not to right now because everybody is on TV for the most part that you've worked with.
Right.
Especially on the AEW side. But yeah. So those matches. I think the first time I ever seen you wrestle was Camp Leapfrog is where I first just like because I was Camp Leapfrog to me was like my introduction to kind of back into wrestling, but into the independent wrestling scene.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember watching it, and they're just like, at first I didn't get what they were going for, because it was everyone just sitting around a table and someone just yells food fight, and then and at the time apricots and pears.
Yeah.
Now Edith Surreal. We're like,
yeah.
does that mean us? All right, let's go.
yeah.
I was just like,
I forgot
I love this.
That matchup.
Yeah, it was just so like food fight, and everyone's like, what?
Yeah.
Oh, that's us.
Yeah.
And it was super entertaining. Edith's another one. Like, if it wasn't for Camp Leapfrog, I don't like Edith for me was like the superhero of that promotion. Like, she is on like all her matches, everything she put together in that promotion is like, I became a mega fan of Edith because of that. But like, that was such
fantastic.
a cool way to like introduce people to a new generation, for me at least, because like it'll always be the most important time for wrestling for me was like Camp Leapfrog pandemic era, because it's like I feel like what they put out there was just good. I loved it. I thought the stories were good. I thought the people that were involved, wrestling was really good, and just I don't know, it was really special to me. And you were a part of it for a while there. You did a lot of cool things. I got to do a commentary with D'Lo Brown for a match for you at the Hamburg Fieldhouse.
Oh yes. That was a fun hour. So Johnny Moran on that one.
Yeah. Commentary. Yeah. Someone on commentary kind of buried you a little bit.
That was the super show they did. Yes.
Yep. But that was a lot of fun. So you're in Japan, and one of the big things is you made, once again, just making buddies with people because you're just a likable person. Juice and Thunder Liger is someone who he's putting your name out there, trying to get you more opportunities. Legend, one of the greatest of all time. How does that come about? And I think I talked a little bit about what this you at the brewery is like when you go over there, the language barrier. Is there like a translator? Is there enough English to Japanese enough that you can have a conversation? How do you form that relationship?
Well, the relationship with Liger started when the Ring of Honor or the New Japan guys came over to Ring of Honor in about I believe 2015 was the first time they came over for us with like a big tour. 2014, 2015, and it just kind of became a thing where like I remember hearing Liger was coming over, and he was, when I discovered Japanese wrestling, he was my favorite wrestler. He became my all-time favorite, and I remember being so excited to finally see him live. And whatever I was doing like on Ring Crew that day, when Liger came out, I just dropped what I was doing. I like ran up to the stands. I was like, I gotta see his entrance. I remember freaking out seeing him come out for the first time and hearing that music blaring. And it just became a thing where the New Japan guys, I just was kind of a guy that Ring of Honor needs someone to kind of take care of them throughout the week. Just kind of like drive them around because they were staying in King of Prussia and for like a week until they went to New York. We had a show in Toronto. They were staying in King of Prussia. They were going to do 2 tryout camps at the ROH school and then go to New York the next weekend and then go back home. So just throughout the week, I became the guy that just kind of took care of them if they needed like rides anywhere. They wanted to go see some of the stuff from Rocky. I took them to Philly, things like that. And I told the guys that Liger is my favorite wrestler, and like Liger, like he like really enjoyed that. And then at one of the trial camps, I did the palm strike, like the shote, and like it was like terrible, it was absolutely awful. And then one of the guys came up to him and was like, "Oh, like hey, do you want like you'd ask Liger to teach you how to do the palm strike?" And I was like, "Oh, were you serious? Like, will you actually teach me?" He's like, "Yeah." And he brought me over to Liger and asked Liger to teach me it. And Liger was like, "Yeah, sure." He taught me like how to do the palm strike. And we ended up turning that into like a promo later for TV, but this was just like completely like off camera. Just like at the dojo, he was just showing me how to do the palm strike. And from then on, that kind of became how our relationship formed. And he would give me advice after matches. He would help me out in Japan. Ring of Honor start tagging us up together. He was always he's what I want to be in a wrestling legend, just someone that is super kind and super willing to get back to the younger generation and just like an absolute legend whose respect you have, but like he can be someone that's personable and someone you can talk to and things like that. But in terms of the language barrier, it depends on the person. There is somewhat of a language barrier, but wrestling over there is very similar to wrestling here. So it's not putting matches together isn't super difficult. And a lot of the guys, they work Americans all the time. So they know kind of how to call their stuff to people that maybe don't speak Japanese and things like that and vice versa.
Well, I'll tell you what you're striving for to be as a person. If you're striving to be like a Liger, you are knocking it out of the park, man. Like I said, every single person I ever come across. No one ever has a bad word to say about you. You are a gem,
Thank you.
a great human. I want to kind of shift gears a little bit here from your wrestling side to that other side of the coaching in the school. So you get this, like, the school is going to go up for sale. I'm not exactly sure how it goes down, or maybe ROH doesn't need the building anymore. How do you become in possession of it? And was it something right away you're like, I don't want to take this on? Or was it something like, no, I need to keep this alive because it's by me. It's important. It should stay within wrestling. How did that all come about?
So the school was Ring of Honor had when Sinclair had got purchased by Ring of Honor in 2011, 2012. At the time, everything was in that one building. So the school was there. The Ring of Honor offices were there. The video editing and the merchandise, all of that was in-house. And Sinclair wanted to start moving everything to Baltimore. So over time, they just kind of slowly started to kind of like build the infrastructure to have everything in Baltimore. So they started moving the video editing first. They had their video editing department in Baltimore. Then they decided to move the merchandise down there. And then they, moved the main offices down there. And then it became a thing where they wanted to move the school, but a lot of us, like especially Delirious, we were fighting to keep the school there. So we managed to keep the school there for a number of years, where it's just like they tried a couple of times to move the school, and everyone's like, we would find like ways to kind of like convince them not to move the school. Then finally in 2018, they were like, that's it, we're moving the school. Like that's the end of it. Like no ifs, ands, or buts, we're moving the school. So they were gonna move everything out and let the landlord lease the room out to whoever else wanted to purchase it. But they offered me a trainer role and to move to Baltimore and start teaching there. And I didn't want to move to Baltimore. I just had no desire to move to Baltimore. And like me and my family had just moved into like a new house and everything. And I was like, I don't want to go to Baltimore. So I thought about it, and like a lot of my students, if the school moved, they wouldn't have a place to train, because where the place was in Baltimore, it was like a little outside of Baltimore. So it was about a 3-hour drive, 3 hours there and back, and not counting traffic is absolutely insane. So a lot of my students would have a place to train. And then also I found out that like a lot of the students that had graduated wouldn't be welcome at the new school by the office as well, which is a whole other mess, that a whole other conversation. But I decided to say, hey, like maybe I can just try and restart the school and like open it as my own. And I talked to Delirious about the idea, and he had like supported me in the idea. And was like, yeah, I think go for it. And I didn't know if it was going to last a couple months, maybe a year, maybe longer, or not work at all. But I talked to the landlord, and I had built a good relationship with him, just through knowing him throughout the years. And he let me sign the lease, and I took over the building. I ended up purchasing the ring from Ring of Honor, and they ended up leaving all the weight equipment there. And that was kind of how we formed the school. And I remember sitting at the
That's
school.
super cool.
Me and sitting at school with like Eli at like a diner, and we were just thinking of different names, and he helped me come up with the name Worldwide Wrestling Dojo, and that was it.
The rest is history, brother.
Yeah.
I love that, man. Like the fact that the history of that building, and everyone who goes there is like, man, these walls are just amazing. The people who've slept on the couches when they come to do shows, and like everything about it. And like for you to come in as this 17-year-old kid as a trainee, and then years like you become the guy who runs it. Like I think it's cool that you kept that history and you thought of others more than yourself. Just I don't know, man. It just I'm always gonna root for the Worldwide Dojo. Every time I see that building, every time there's tapings, every time there's something going on there, it's just I don't know, just your passion, your love for the people you work with and everything like that. Like it just bleeds through. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think that's super super dope. How do people become a student or come in to work for your school if they want to come and enter the business? First off, Bristol, Pennsylvania, if anyone. Yeah.
We're located in Bristol, Pennsylvania. We're about like 25, 30 minutes outside Philadelphia. We're a bit closer to Jersey, actually. We're like right by across the bridge from Burlington, New Jersey. But I always tell people, I post our link and tell people email me and contact me. And anytime someone inquires about the school, the first thing I always like to do is invite them to come for a meeting. One, just to kind of, sorry, my phone.
You're good.
Still a house phone here. I always invite people to come for a meeting. One, because I just so that way they can get I feel like it's sometimes hard to get a feel for things through email. So I like to meet with them in person, just kind of get a feel for who they are, and they can get a feel for me as a trainer. And I invite them to stay and watch a class for like an hour. And just so that way people can see what they're getting themselves into. And I don't want people to come in. I know like how nerve-wracking it can be to walk into your first day of wrestling school. And I I did the same thing. I came for a meeting for the ROH school first, and I'm glad I did. But even so, it was still very like nerve wracking going to that first day. But if I didn't go for a meeting and see what the class was like, I would be like insanely more like terrified. So I always like to get in. But first thing when people contact me, I'll try and set up a meeting with them to come just see the school, come meet with myself, come meet some of the students, talk to some of the students, get their mindset, and just I think it's good for them to see like how the environment is and like how I teach. And just I think that's the biggest thing is them getting a feel for how the environment is.
Mm-hmm. Now, one of the big things when it comes to the wrestling side of things is sometimes when you go to a school or you work for a promotion, everyone's kind of like, if you work here, you can't work there. And if you're at this school, you can't go to. Is that something you encourage other students to like, hey, if you can go to a seminar here, if you go to another school? Because the crazy thing about the Philadelphia scene is right now, and it's like the Philadelphia, the New Jersey, and even like the New York, I'm just kind of using those 3 states, but like you got all these new places popping up with really, really, really talented schools, especially in the Philadelphia area. Do you encourage other students to like, hey, you're here for a little bit, go check out Catch Point, or go check out this place, or go check out Create a Pro in Jersey, or Create a Wrestler? Like, is that something as a trainer you encourage people to do?
Yeah, I don't mind if students go out and like explore other schools. I encourage them to do seminars and go learn from whoever they can. I think it when someone's like say like first starting out in like their first few months, I do think it is counterintuitive to kind of spread yourself too thin. Because now, like, you don't really know it, like anything, and you're getting like so much different information at the same time that you don't really know kind of like how to filter it. But I think once students kind of have a grasp of like who they are and like everything, and they've like kind of like progressed and been training for like a few months, then yeah, like go out and do seminars, go out and go to other schools and broaden your knowledge, and that can only help you as a wrestler, either learning how to do things a certain way or just learning just different pieces of advice and whatever it may be.
Yeah. Some students that you currently have, or some students that have come out of your school, out of your tutelage or your training, who are some names out there that we should look out for?
Definitely. The first two that come to mind would be Eli Isom and Ryan Mooney. They're two of my earliest students from the Ring of Honor Dojo. Actually, they graduated from the Ring of Honor school, and they've been with me for several years now, both as like students and as tag team partners. Two of my like earliest like success stories in terms of teaching them, and they both ended up signing contracts with Ring of Honor at very young ages, and being in that system, wrestling on TV and everything, and doing really well for themselves. And now with the closure of Ring of Honor and the rebrand, like doing some stuff with the Ring of Honor, doing some stuff with AEW Dark, and doing a lot of good things on the indies. So those are the first two. Dylan Mesh as well. He was another one who graduated from the ROH school that and at the time, the ROH school, myself, Delirious, and Wilford R, we were all the teachers for these three. They were both fantastic as well. But Dylan Mesh, he is great. And for people that have watched Captured Lightning, Dylan Mesh was our first champion, the Captured Lightning champion. And I really loved his title reign. And I love how he stepped up for the dojo and really represented the Worldwide Dojo and Captured Lightning well as the first champion. And it was cool to me to be able to give him that recognition that like, hey, you're like really talented and more people should know about you, and him to step up and accept that and be the great first champion that we needed. Also Damaris Dawkins, or just Damaris, she's fantastic. Like one of those people you never hear like anything bad about, and she's super talented. Like every like women's wrestler that like works with her, I hear people say like she's always one of their favorite opponents. Like everyone loves working with her.
She's the female cheeseburger. Like like her I don't mean that, like I mean that in like a complete like the way when people speak about you, they speak about Damaris, like her the way she conducts herself. She's not gonna be like, you're not someone who walks in the room and you're the first one to initiate the conversation, but if someone comes to you, you're going to give a conversation, and you're always very, it's just her demeanor. She's literally the female version of you. Like she's a gem.
She's fantastic.
Yeah. She's so good.
No, she's awesome. She's and one of the best technical wrestlers like that people don't know about. And I think I think she doesn't realize her own potential of like what she could do and like how good she can be and the places she can go. But, I think it's just a work in progress. And, hopefully there's a level of success that I think she can reach that I really hope she does one day. Yeah. She's fantastic. Harleen Lopez, she's been with me about a year now, maybe longer, maybe 2 years
She
now.
just hit her year, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. She had trained previously somewhere else and had started coming to the dojo, and she's really made a home at the dojo and really been a welcome addition to both the dojo and like our family and our system and everything.
Her
She's
love
been
for wrestling is incredible. Like
yeah,
when
she's
I
super
had her on the
passionate about it.
podcast, she was at points emotional of ready to cry talking about her love of professional wrestling. I'm rooting super hard for her. She's a good
She's a
heel.
very you can tell she's a student of the game. She watches like everything. Like I always see her posting about wrestling like from Japan, like from on TV, like from the indies. Like she studies like so much, and I really appreciate like how passionate she is with watching wrestling. A couple other people, Sturdy Salmastretta, Ashley Buchanan, David Moses, John Lee Kirk, some of our like core group that's always around on Capture Lightning as well, and all of them are great. Salmastretta, our current Capture Lightning champion, Ashley Buchanan, you've seen her a lot, and she's done like some LVEC stuff, some Labor of Love stuff. She's been getting around in the indies. David Moses, great, reminds me of like that old school like All Japan like wrestler, like that build and like that style, and like he's really fantastic. And John Lee Kirk, who's really found himself, he's been under Dylan Mesh for the last year of Capture Lightning, just kind of like finding his place as a heel, and he's really started to come into his own both in the ring, figuring out his character as a fashion icon on the microphone as well. Dr. Ethan Wild, he's been
Love
in
him.
the dojo system for a long time, about like 3 or 4 years. He's really started to put the pieces together and really started to do some cool stuff. Won his first titles, won the tag team titles at High Tension as well, the old Leapfrog belts. So he's been doing very well.
Those titles were won and crowned in your building.
Yeah, absolutely.
That Grand Prix tournament ended in the dojo.
That long tape in because it rained or snowed or something, right?
Well, the worst rain I've ever experienced in my life. Yeah. I had to pull over. I couldn't drive. I couldn't see.
Yeah, that was yeah. That tape was so long, but we got through it.
Yeah.
They're all great. The Lost Boys, they've been with me for a little bit now. So they've been doing really well. They've all started to kind of like find themselves on the indies. And I see them working like a lot, and it really makes me happy when I see my students getting a lot of work. And I'm always encouraging them like just go out there and just get reps, just get as much work as you can.
Yeah. So Labor of Love, we'll end with Labor of Love. They're a promotion that you've been working with for a little bit here. What is the environment of Labor of Love like? What's the locker room? What are the show? If people have never seen a Labor of Love show, what do they expect?
It's awesome. It's like a very fun, like wrestling, like rock and roll atmosphere, if for lack of a better term. They always have wrestling, but they also have like awesome bands, like punk rock bands. So they usually do those before the matches or sometimes after the matches. And I really like the crowd and the environment they draw, because they draw not just a wrestling audience, but just like that punk rock audience. And the energy of all their shows is always super high. They always do a good job of finding really good people for the locker room, really good talent, both in ring, but also just people that are just cool to be around in the locker room. And their shows are always very efficiently ran. Like they don't go super long. They give you freedom to kind of shape your story and shape your match how you want. And yeah, it's just great. And it's one of my favorite places to work. It's a place that there's like, I have a lot of places that I really like working. I don't want to like take away from any other company, but Labor of Love, LVAC, and like Flying B are like 3 of my all-time favorite places to work on the indies. And I will there's a bunch of other places like Ironheart and Pro Wrestling Magic and things like that, but like those 3 are just like
these are all kind of in your backyard.
They're like very close, and they all kind of use a lot of the same people, not a lot of the same people, but they kind of have like a core group of like people from the dojo and stuff like that, and like maybe like old Chikara people, and they kind of have that mix, and they have just such a great environment of people that I just really love being around. Those 3 are places where I will try and make sure I'm on every show if possible and just always be in that environment. But yeah, Labor of Love is fantastic.
So Labor of Love is doing 2 shows Mania weekend, correct? A Wednesday and a Thursday.
Wednesday and Thursday.
From what I'm seeing with the card and the announcements and the people coming, and even the show I believe that's coming before Mania weekend, man, they book some good people. Like they got
the show with I've seen a lot of the Wednesday show announcements. It's pretty stacked. Like they have myself and Weber Hatfield. We're wrestling for the Citywide title. Speedball versus Paul London. They just announced Bobby Orlando versus LJ Cleary. Who, if you don't know LJ Cleary, he's probably the top star in Irish wrestling. I met him when I was in Ireland about 2 years ago, and actually recommended he contact Labor of Love and a bunch of the other Irish talent that were coming over. He's like the top guy in Ireland right now, or one of the top guys, and he's been going over to Pro Wrestling Noah and doing tours with them, and he's just an absolute like superstar.
Yeah. I got to experience the UK wrestling scene, seeing Defy in progress when I was over there for All In. And man, London wrestling is fun. Like those crowds and those people overseas, they eat it up, man. Wembley was the coolest experience I think I've ever had for pro wrestling. So yeah, if it's like that over in Ireland and stuff, I could definitely see that. But yeah, the labor, and they're doing stuff with the local brewery. Like you said, it's rock and roll, it's craft beer, it's pro wrestling. The name is good, the logo is good, the booking is good, the locker room is good.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say now, I think if you're there Mania weekend for the big one, definitely look to get those tickets for Wednesday and Thursday show, because I think they're gonna.
They don't overlap with like any of the like super like the GCW stuff, like IWTV stuff. So like I highly recommend if you want to see some new talent, but also some like really like talent you've seen before, but also some new people like Wednesday and like Thursday, like check out those shows because they're gonna be awesome and they're gonna be like just super fun.
Do you think this Mania weekend and what Labor of Love is putting together, do you think it puts them on the map as a contending for one of the shows you should, or people you should be looking at in the Philadelphia area?
It's tough to say because I don't think they're trying to be that. So I would say no, because they're not like, they don't really have the reach of a place like, like of a GCW, for example, or because a lot of their shows, they usually they are streaming these shows, which is very good, and I'm very excited for them. But most of their shows, they don't really like stream. They just kind of just keep them as like, this is the experience, and like you have to be here to experience that. Which I understand there's pros and cons to that, but I think that's kind of cool. Whereas like you have to be there to experience that. But I definitely think this card that they're putting on and like the announcements that I think they're going to get some heads turning and get people to check them out.
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing about Mania weekend, man, is everyone comes and they bring their A game, because that's the weekend where if you're gonna get, speedball, like that one Mania weekend, he's been working and working, and that week he's like, yo, book me everywhere. He's literally in the same gear, he's running to the next show,
everywhere,
and everybody's chasing that speedball weekend. And I mean, and it's not just talent anymore. It's commentary. It's promotions. They want their promotion to be like, hey, like we deserve your love. If you're in the Philadelphia area, you think of pro wrestling in Philly, come to a Labor of Love show. You know what I mean? Like, and it's a great way to have healthy competition and for everyone to try to shine, and just being in love with the Northeast wrestling scene, whether it's Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York. I'm pumped for Mania weekend, man. I'm so excited for everyone to just tear it apart. And honestly, I'm not just putting this over because it's your match. 1 second. But I'm a huge Weber fan as a human, as a performer. And I think you two are going to steal the show. Like, I think that's going to be a fun match.
Yeah, he's absolutely fantastic.
Choked on my own spit. I'm not emotional. I choked on my spit. Yeah, but where can people find you? How can people support you? Links below for everything, but put your stuff out there.
You can follow me on Instagram at the world famous CB, Twitter at Cheeseburger ROH, which I have not changed in like 12 years. At Cheeseburger ROH. I didn't want to lose my verification, but then Elon Musk took verification from everybody anyway, so I should probably change that. But I also like just kind of keeping that there because I think it's funny. But at Cheeseburger ROH on Twitter, world famous CB on Instagram. You can follow my dojo if you're interested in becoming a professional wrestler. If you're around the New Jersey, Philadelphia, New York area, at Worldwide Dojo on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And please check out our YouTube show, Captured Lightning, at the Worldwide Wrestling Dojo's YouTube channel. Give us a subscribe, like a video, comment. Any little bit helps. And I really want to get to 1,000 subscribers this year. We're about at like 836 right now as of February. So I think we can get that by December for sure. And we've been putting on some really good matches, and like the students have been getting better each every single taping we do. The goal of it is just to get people experience like working for a weekly product and experience working cameras, learning how to work for commentary, doing backstage promos, following your match times, and all these skills that I want my students to have, so that way if they get a shot at a TV company, they are ready. They can walk in, be TV ready, and be like, I can hit my time. I can cut a promo. I can do whatever you need of me.
Is there ever going to be a point where you're going to allow people to come in to watch the tapings or be like a studio audience?
We actually do have this will probably air after that, but we actually do have a live show coming up, Family and Friends exhibition show on February 16th. So I can send you a message with that if you want to come by for that.
Yeah, if right now car troubles for me, so if I can get it, I definitely will. But
I will say I have considered. I'm on the fence about it. So we'll do like these are like 2 or 3 times a year. We'll do like these like family and friends shows, just kind of like, hey, pay like donate $10 to the school to like raise some money for the school and come like see a like an hour and a half show. And they've been very successful, and they help give the students some experience in front of a live crowd, but also just in terms of just like helping the school raise some money for everything. And I have considered doing one Mania weekend on like a Sunday, like maybe at like 12 for like an hour or something like that. I'm on the fence about it. I might do it. I'm not sure, but it depends on like how my schedule is and how busy I am. But I might do a little small show Mania weekend.
One little thing, it's Dojo Wars. We need Dojo Wars. We need because I right now I'm seeing a lot of kids from like the Catch Point and then the Worldwide Dojo, and they're on the scene and they're working against each other and they're working with each other and developing friendships and bonds, and then you have like like the Sanctuary. You have all these different schools all over the area. I think it'd be kind of cool to get you kind of did it a little bit at the brewery show where it was kind of like Team Worldwide, and then Puff had his I kind of like when you have that chemistry of a school, but then you kind of have the matchups of this school versus that school.
I have considered. I had a couple of people ask me about that for our YouTube channel, like for Capture Lightning or something, doing like a school versus school type thing. I have thought about it, but I also don't know if I want to make that like a separate show and how I want to format it, or if I want to make that part of the Capture Lightning universe. So it's kind of like something I've been thinking.
Oh, you should spoof it just like Karate Kid. Like 100% Karate Kid spoof it, where it's school versus school, and you could do storylines. I would love it. I would, because like I said, I think this young batch coming up from the Northeast area is special, and I think there's so many good people. Not trying to pat myself on the back, but a lot of interviews. If you want to go check them out in the past, I've interviewed a lot of people who came from the Worldwide Dojo. I'm telling you, if you're looking for a school, hit them up. You're going to get good people. You never know who's going to walk in the door at the dojo just because of who Cheeseburger has made connections with and his personality, and people love him. You never know who's going to be there, and you're going to get a lot of good opportunities to work really cool people and have those experiences. Cheeseburger, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you having him. Make sure you go check out the links below, not just for the Worldwide Dojo, not just for Cheeseburger, but also Labor of Love, the Ben Frank Connection, ABJ Podcast. We're doing everything. Every corners, we have a little fatal 4-way going on in each quarter. I love it. Cheeseburger, always a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for your time in doing this.
Absolutely.
I know you're exhausted. You're still you're still burnt out from the cruise.
Cruise lag.
The cruise lag, yeah. But everyone have a great time. We'll see you guys next time in the ABJ Podcast. Starting in March, everything's live. We'll be back. Maybe we'll bring Cheeseburger on, talk about his favorite movie. Who knows? Well, there's all these opportunities for cool content. But we'll see you guys next time in the ABJ Podcast. We're out of here.
Thanks for watching this presentation. Like, share, and subscribe for more.